Hi, and welcome to Curious Conversations, the podcast where curiosity meets connection. Thanks for joining as we discuss captivating stories and ideas and engage in thought-provoking conversations with experts, enthusiasts, and everyday people. We hope to ignite a curious spirit as we embark on a quest for understanding, one curious conversation at a time. So let's jump in this together. Welcome to the world of Curious Conversations. Hi, my name is Carly, and I'm one of the hosts here on Curious Conversations. Today, we want to introduce you to our concepts and tell you a little about our humble beginnings. We're going to share our vision and kind of what you can expect and give some insight into how our podcast has changed drastically since its inception. Before we dive in, though, I want to introduce you to my sidekick and co-host, Mandy.
Hello, Carly. I am super excited to dive into this world of curious stories with you. You know how much I love this kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to share a little about who we are, but first, I really wanted to get right into the why of the podcast. So, kind of why we created it, but more why we think you, our listeners, are going to love it. So, Mandy, I'm going to kind of turn to you first. Do you want to give us some insight into why you were interested in hosting a podcast about the world of curious?
Sure. Well, Carly, you know I've always been interested in curious stories, and since I was a child, like long before we met, I was always kind of creating my own stories. Like I had this huge imagination, and I would take basically nothing and make it into something. Still kind of do that, but I'd hear a part of a story, or I'd see a movie, maybe something I wasn't supposed to see, and I kind of gravitated towards like all those things that were hidden and the unusual stories passed down and that kind of thing. And I just always loved the curious stories.
Yeah, absolutely. I really think that my curiosity about things around me started probably long before I could actually put a name to it.
Hmm.
I remember being a little girl and my parents telling me, like, it's rude to stare at people
Yeah.
or listen in when others are talking. But, I just had this insatiable desire to know about the people around me. And I think that's why I love reading memoirs. Like, I
Hmm.
want to know other people's stories, like what they've been through. And I just had this natural curiosity, which I believe many people do,
Hmm.
about the things that aren't quite normal. And I want to learn about things that are outside of standard everyday life. I want to know about the crazy jobs that people work or strange hobbies that people have. Like anything that stirs curiosity, I'm in.
Right. That goes along with, don't stare and that's rude kind of thing. When it's really not that to me, it sounds like it, but it's just about being curious, which is human nature. That covers a variety of things too.
Yeah, well, absolutely. So I feel like humans kind of have like an innate need to connect with others.
Hmm.
And as children, we didn't have, the social regulations of what was and was not acceptable. So we just listened and we just stared like whenever we wanted. And so here we have created a podcast that allows space for those natural curiosities to just be talked about.
Yeah, it's funny when you say that. Like a couple of things from my past even come to mind. Like I can picture when I saw something that was strange or overheard something, that was just like out of the norm. You hate to even use that word strange for some things, but you are curious as a kid. It's just natural. And but you know what? We weren't always curious conversations.
Right. Okay. So when we first began to collab on this, we were actually calling it How Bizarre.
Hmm.
It was a catchy name and we had the music plans. Like I know you can hear it in the back of your head. But we hit a couple of really just major hurdles. Well, one being we didn't own the rights to that song.
Yeah.
And they're expensive.
Yeah.
But two, we didn't feel like it portrayed the vibe that we were going for.
That's true. I think once we refined our goals for the podcast, we realized that what we really want to share, you couldn't just limit it to those ideas and stories that were deemed bizarre, quote unquote. you know, we plugged into some of our stories for an outline, and we were looking at that, and we just saw there's just so much more out there. I mean, it could be even a little insensitive or offensive with certain topics to call it bizarre. I didn't want to just, link all that together, and I didn't want to box it into bizarre. I know that's how you felt.
Yeah, absolutely. So our goal really was to share topics and stories with kind of a sensitive nature, but also not limiting ourselves as we continue to collect and share stories that could potentially be
Hmm.
controversial, just handling these things with some sensitivity.
Yeah, it's a delicate balance, especially these days. You want everybody to know your heart and what your intention is. And so that name change, I think, was important. Um, it's hard for your audience to always know that intention, but, we're sharing that up front.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I think we maybe talk about our episodes a little bit, kind of what
Yeah.
listeners can expect.
Yeah. I think it's important to have a large variety of content for discussion, and we definitely are getting that. I feel like, we sort of opened up the gates for this when we decided what we were going to do. We
Hmm.
sort of leveled that out on what our goals were. And so, you know, since bizarre does sort of box us in, I'm excited to not only talk about the bizarre and weird stories, but also to jump into some of these deeper conversations, like about culture and personal experiences of our guests, as well as many of our own stories that we can tie in. And I love the idea that we have. This is not going to just be, something we heard about, but, something that's, I guess, relevant to us as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that, we definitely enjoy the weird and the bizarre, but we do have a love for people
Hmm.
and the things that they've lived through. And we both love our communities and just
Yeah.
small towns in general. And, as authors and storytellers, I feel we both have a passion for listening to and helping tell others' stories. So this project is really a culmination of our interest in the things that we're already talking about, the things we're already writing about. I'm excited.
Yeah, exactly. So you're already sharing intimate stories through your writing. You write a lot of realistic fiction. You wrote about your grandmother's journey with Alzheimer's and the passion that you have for, to tell the struggles and stuff that just like in that raw form, so that anyone who finds themselves in that place can think back and draw strength from your experiences.
Yeah, so I love realistic fiction. I like writing it, I love reading it. And I think it goes all the way back to growing up curious, where I
Uh-huh.
really wanted to know everything there was to know about the people around me and how they live their lives. I own a publishing company, and I find myself really drawn to stories that connect the reader and the author. And I think that's an excellent display of what we're trying to do
Hmm.
here, too, which is take the outside things that are outside of the norm and share it in a way that our listeners can really connect with. And you bring an incredible amount of the curious side of it, which is displayed all throughout your writing.
Yeah, definitely. Whether that's my 80s series where I'm literally following a storyline of this girl who's so curious that she's actually kind of balancing that fine line between right and wrong. It's like what you hear growing up playing with fire, I guess
Yep.
you'd say. So, but then my latest story, once again, someone's dabbling with a dangerous situation or something that could be dangerous, only this time it's a local fair, it's an adult. And it's where drifters that come in and out of this location may or may not be risky, and that's something I always find myself writing about time and time again. It's the mysterious, the unknown, these curious stories that we all want to hear.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, when I was a kid, this comes back to me. I remember anything I was told. Oh, you don't want to look into that. You don't want to do this. I was always drawn to that.
Yes.
I just, I don't know. I just wanted to learn more. And I mean, even with people, give me the underdog, the secret keeper, the dysfunctional. I'm just drawn to characters with rough edges and stories that make you want to dig deeper.
Yeah, absolutely. We have another segment of our show that I think is utterly cool,
Hmm.
which we have deemed the Curious Dish. So, this is part of our show where we're going to kind of just dish about the most curious things we've seen that week.
This is going to be so much fun.
Yeah.
So we'll definitely be stirring up some curious stories here. This might be something that we've seen, something offhand that we've heard. Something we discovered during our research. Like, it's just going to be open to a lot of things. I mean, it's
Hmm.
funny how many strange things pop up once you start a podcast.
Absolutely. Gosh.
But seriously, I've always heard little stories like urban legends and all passed down. or, like you overheard some strange comment in a store. I have to admit, people are curious about interesting stories.
Yes, yeah. And I mean, that's something you definitely will share more of later is hearing things in stores. You have a really good story to back that up. Um, Speaking of interesting stories and what we can expect, maybe this is a good time to kind of share a little about
Hmm.
what we've been working on and what we have coming up. So tell me, what are you particularly stoked about that listeners can anticipate hearing on the show?
Oh my gosh, Carly, there is so much. So I feel like we did fine tune the dial when we set our sights on collecting some curious stories. I mean, seriously, it's literally coming out of the woodwork.
Yes,
I'll say that there's a
a
lot.
lot.
But a couple of things I have really been focused on are stories of mysterious items and mysterious locations.
Hmm.
Like some of which are, I mean, some of them I had kind of heard of, but some of them are just kind of coming to me now, and I'm thinking, how did I not know this? But
Right.
I have to say, some of that is a little dark, but it is very interesting, and I think that our, listeners want to hear this.
Mhm.
But because I guess I'm wondering what drives that darkness, that mystery. Is it the actual thing or the place, or is it the storyteller, like somebody who told it that way?
Right.
That's why I want us to visit these places and see these things and just really go on location to some spots I've been hearing about and see what our take is. I mean, that's what all this is, right? Is it's like everybody has a story and has maybe the opportunity to learn the stories, but this is our take on it and this
Yeah.
is our share. I also want us to have some back and forth opinions on items, like haunted items, strange items, curious items.
Yeah.
Let's see what makes it all tick. Like, why do people have the beliefs they have about places and things? I'm all about those kind of discussions. I just think it'll be a lot of fun. What about you, Carly? What are you working on?
Yeah, so right now, gosh, I'm really digging into some true crime stories, particularly ones that hit close to home, especially if your home is Northwest Georgia. Hint, hint. I've had the opportunity to talk to some locals and some experts, and they have shared some really incredible details that I can't wait to share with our listeners. Another episode that I've been really immersed in is our Curious Products episode.
Hmm.
And I've really gotten excited about this one. I've enjoyed testing out some products that we have found strange and curious. And we're even digging into how some of those products came about and, the curious beginnings of the companies that produce them.
Yeah.
I've learned a lot of just really weird, bizarre things. And then, we're talking to people. People have stories and they're stories that we want to hear.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's why we work really well together because, as you just stated, so you're talking to some professional people. I'm talking to sort of some storytellers, some urban stories, people who know about these places and things. And so when that comes together, then you've got a lot of different sides, you know.
Exactly.
So I know every small town has stories, and some of those have been passed down for generations. Some are true, some are folklore, urban legends, like I've talked about before, but then you have the stories that nobody's talking about, but they're begging to be told.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, right now we're talking to folks about strange behaviors and, curious collections, family stories, maybe even some UFO sightings, another wink wink. So we definitely want to hear from you guys, our listeners, about the curious stories that you have to tell. So,
Hmm.
anything that you find curious, we probably also find curious. And we all know that you can find the podcast out there who are just regurgitating internet. And we knew we had to do more. We wanted
Hmm.
to do more. We needed to kind of offer something, I'll say, deeper.
Yeah. So we back up our information with personal stories, like you talked about. People who have professional input, and sometimes the stories are even our own. Sometimes
Yeah.
they're from others, and but this way you're not just hearing some factory told, but you're hearing the stories of experience behind the stories. So we're in our communities and online talking to people and tying all that side of it.
Yeah, we want to be able to create the space for one soul to connect with another. And that's through everything that we do. So sometimes that looks like connecting over something that may have been tragic or heartbreaking. But many times we're just kind of creating that connection through laughter and fun things that we're all curious about, but nobody's talking about. Um, Anyways, so let's get back to the hosts, Mandy. I would love to take a minute and let our listeners know a little about who they'll be listening to each week. You want to tell us a
Yeah.
little about you?
Okay, so I've lived in North Georgia all of my life, and I feel that the small towns around here, I've lived in about 3 or 4 different towns in this general vicinity. They all sort of lend themselves to storytelling. I can say personally that everything I write originated from a personal story, whether that was really close, something I heard of, somebody I knew of, but most of that took place in this familiar region that I call home. I've lived in the same small town now with my husband for 21 years. We have a son and 2 dogs.
Cute dogs.
Yeah, thank you. They're sweeties. We're busy, but we have a really blessed life. And in addition to writing books, I'm president of a nonprofit writers group and also have a couple of side projects. One's The Collector. So that's it's an initiative inspired by an upcoming book by the same name. And I also have a weekly event live on Facebook where I discuss odd collections and host a curiosity shop style auction. So
I
you can,
love that, by the way. I've won some amazing things on there.
oh, I know. So that's like, in the same vein, I guess you'd say, but definitely different. But you can see where that curious nature came.
Yes.
So you can find the rewatch of all that on my YouTube channel by the same name, The Collector. I also have some personal events, which include unique field trips, storytelling tours, like the haunted history tour I began locally this year.
Yep.
I'm the author of the Trace books. That's I guess, my writing side here. I'm the author of the Trace books, and that's a spooky '80s series. And I also have a book called Affair in August, and that's a Southern thriller. This year I've had have really a hefty load of 3 books in the works, so we'll see.
You've done so good at building just an entire world around what you're doing. You definitely have like this little marketing bug inside of you that is amazing. Okay, so a little about me. So my fiance and I, we have 7 kids between us. I have 4 and he has 3. We love the little town that we're living in. Just a little sleepy Northwest Georgia, cozy. We love it. I'm originally from Florida, and there's the area that I'm from. You didn't have that cozy, like we're all in this together,
Yeah.
hometown team feeling. And so I think that's just really been imperative to what we're doing right now
Hmm.
is there's definitely a support system within the community, and so people want to talk, people want to tell their
Yeah.
stories. They're not afraid to open up and say, "Oh, let me tell you what I saw or what I heard." So that's fantastic. Our kiddos are all moving out and starting their own lives. We've got older teens now and no littles. And so, I do find myself growing kind of bored during the day, when you don't have so many kiddos to take care of. So, I'm writing more than I have been, and mostly, honestly, from a personal place. And I think that's where I hope that my writing and my stories can help others through something. So I enjoy writing as much as I can. During the day, I do run a publishing company that's called Colorful Crow Publishing. And, I do some contract media and promotion work for an organization that focuses on the prevention of underage substance abuse. And so, that all keeps me busy during the day. But in my spare time, I do enjoy writing. I like walking through the writing and the publishing journey with other writers, and so we've started an online support system for writers of all genres and skill levels, and that's called Colorful Crow Writers Community. Anyone interested in learning more about that and some of my other projects can visit colorfulcrowpublishing.com, or they can email me directly at carly@colorfulcrowpublishing.com. But Mandy, where can folks go to learn more about you and your projects?
Yeah, well, you can learn more about my books and projects on my website, mandylcantrellauthor.com. All of my links are there, including the collector, and everything should be right there for you to find.
Yep.
Well, listen, if we've piqued an interest, consider joining us as we unveil weekly stories that are sure to captivate you, our audience, on this journey into the curious. A personal journey for us that we cannot wait to share with you all.
Yeah, and don't forget, follow us on Facebook where we post exclusive content, contests, and so much more. And of course, keep up with our episodes through Podbean or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. And as always, if you have a story that sparks curiosity or you have something you want us to talk about, send us an email to ourcuriouspodcast@gmail.com. Thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to hit that subscribe button, and don't forget, follow us on Facebook where we post exclusive content, contests, and much more. And as always, if you have a story that sparks curiosity or have something you want us to talk about, send us an email to ourcuriouspodcast@gmail.com. See you next time.